I think we may have a whole new page, so I apologize if you guys have to jump back in. I do have some good hold music. It just didn't come back. So, new link, new stream. Sorry. Let's see if I can bring it back up. Periscope just opens right up to it, and I don't know what the deal is with that thing. I've got to, yeah, there you go. Did it come back to the regular channel, or do you guys have to go back to the new stream? Let me know. Sorry if everybody got bumped out. Hi. I really enjoy the software. I don't want to have to rebuild and that kind of stuff, but it's been, there's another hang up in it. It wouldn't be my show if there wasn't some sort of weird technical difficulty. So I appreciate you guys being with me. New stream? Okay. Yeah. So share that around if you would. I feel like I got to start again. Welcome to the show. How are you? Those of you that may not have been with us before, we're in the middle of a show, so if you didn't see, just look at TikTok as Malware Part 1. I'll rename this one later. This is Part 2. Welcome back.
I'm telling you straight. It's my way or the highway. So anybody wants to walk, do it now.
So, we have, I'm recalling, if you will, did you see the POTUS Twitch channel got suspended? I did, for inciting violence, which, I mean, quite frankly, should have happened, on all the channels eventually. I saw somebody yesterday bitching about how right-wingers keep getting, you don't see Hillary channels getting kicked off for violence or whatever. Like, that's because they don't incite violence. And the lefties that do don't tend to vote Hillary or Biden. They tend to be the TYT-linked nutcases, the Gavin Longs of the world. They're the ones who get punched off. The vast majority of the right-wingers that do that call for violence, are saying we need to rise up with our guns, all this kind of like softballing, violent rhetoric. So Twitch is incredibly stable. Although it is it's the software I'm using that's, kind of the dick move currently. So apologies to everybody who got kicked off, and welcome back, and hi, how are you? Yeah.
Fought alongside one another.
If you'll recall, so last year this time was when the plan started for Putin to pay Afghans to kill American soldiers. Theoretically, before this meeting and before the 4th of July gathering of the GOP senators that went to Russia. In this lovely story, GOP senators tell contradictory stories about the Moscow trip. A top Republican senator shocked his colleagues when he suggested, after returning from a trip to Moscow with fellow GOP leaders, that the U.S. sanctions targeting Russia were not working, and the Kremlin's election interference was really no big deal. Now the senators who joined him for a series of meetings with senior Russian officials are sharply disputing not only Senator Ron Johnson's conclusions, but also his account of what went on behind closed doors in Moscow. I think the sanctions are hurting them both badly in terms of their pocketbooks and in terms of their status in the world, Senator John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana. Thank you, Rebecca, who joined the congressional delegation last week, said in an interview. I don't want to overstate this, but these were very tense meetings. In public, the American lawmakers directly appealed to Russia for a better relationship, but in private, according to the senators who attended the meetings, they confronted their Russian counterparts over a host of issues, most notably Moscow's interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Russian officials were under the impression that only Democrats were critical of Russia for its election meddling and its incursions into Eastern Europe. That's why Johnson raised eyebrows when, after returning from the 9-day trip with 5 of his fellow GOP senators, he suggested that the U.S. should evaluate whether the sanctions currently in place are successfully harming Russian interests, because you'd be hard-pressed to say that sanctions against Russia are really working all that well. He also appeared to downplay the significance of election interference, saying it was not the greatest threat to our democracy, and we've blown it way out of proportion. Gotta love Wisconsin. His colleagues, who attended the same meetings with Russian lawmakers and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, had a different impression. Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama, who led the congressional delegation, said in an interview that he and his colleagues told their Russian counterparts that the worst thing you can do is try to meddle in our elections. The senator also disputed Johnson's argument about the effectiveness of sanctions. the Russian leadership that we met with talked about the sanctions, how they were making no difference, but then they kept talking about the sanctions, Kennedy said when asked about Johnson's comments. And we were pretty direct. I was pretty direct that if they meddle in our elections this fall, they're going to get a double dose of those sanctions. Does that mean they're going to stop? No, I don't think they're going to. But I thought it was important for us to deliver the message that we know what we're doing and we don't appreciate it. Yeah, meanwhile, Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas, who accompanied the group to Moscow, suggested that Johnson could have drawn his conclusions from a meeting that the senators had with the American business leaders in Russia. According to Moran, those Americans expressed a desire that the sanctions be, quote, uniform and that Europe and the United States need to be on the same page when it comes to sanctions. That, to me, was the message that the business community delivered. You mean the oligarch community? The ones that are linked with the Russian oligarchs? The people who are completely in bed with them and will die if they try to break financial ties? You mean those folks? American business interests? Yeah, multinationals that only have a bridge between themselves and Russia as the primary bit? What? When's the last time you bought a Russian washing machine? It's oil and gas. That to me was the message that the business community delivered. That we've got to all do this together. That unilateral sanctions don't work as well, and that they may damage U.S. business interests. My view is exactly what I conveyed to Russian officials, which is that if you want the sanctions to disappear or diminish, it requires a change in your behavior. A significant portion of the changing the relationship is whether or not there should be sanctions. Boo frickety who. Meanwhile, so those guys were doing that. Our soldiers were being killed by people who were getting paid by the Russians to kill them specifically.
In the second
Great World Cup.
World War.
Fantastic job.
Even during the tensions of the Cold War, when the world looked much different than it does today, the United States and Russia
Yeah, we didn't have flat screens. That's true.
were able to maintain a strong
Dude, my software locked up.
dialogue. But our relationship has never been worse than it is now.
However, I'm going to fix that. It's never been worse than it is now. Okay, first of all, bullshit. We were nuking the shit out of our own countries to show each other how much we were going to destroy each other. There were multiple times where people, like, almost destroyed the earth. There was a guy, hold on, what was the guy's name? The Russian who saved the world. It's real easy to find that. So, where is he? Google search. Stanislav Petrov. That's the dude. Stanislav Petrov was the guy who didn't pull defied orders when told to return fire on the United States because they mistakenly thought a volley of missiles had come from the United States and was headed towards Russia. And Stanislav Petrov was a lieutenant colonel of the Soviet Defense Forces, and he essentially said they were telling him, like, retaliate, you're going to have to launch these missiles, and he said no. Good God. Never been worse, he says, but things are going to get awesome.
That changed.
Oh yeah, it changed. So this time last year, before the Republicans spent the 4th of July in Russia, it's never been worse, but it's going to get better. After this meeting, Putin either initiated this plan or knew it was ongoing.
As of about 4 hours ago.
That was the big change. So 4 hours after this, Jesus
I
Christ.
really believe that.
You really believe that? Because I don't have any other choice.
Nothing would be easier politically than to refuse to meet, to refuse to engage, but that would not accomplish anything.
Well, depends on who you're talking to. I mean, I do think to some degree, I mean, I'm glad we caught Buffalo Bill, but it wasn't because Lecter was smart or a genius. It was because he had direct relation to the case. Buffalo Bill had killed one of his patients. So he was sort of a material witness. It wasn't like he figured it out.
As president, I cannot make decisions on foreign policy
Without consulting Vladimir Putin.
in a futile effort to appease partisan critics or the media or Democrats who want to do nothing but resist and obstruct.
Oh, is that what we... Why would we want to resist and obstruct someone who is standing next to a guy who's paying people to kill our soldiers, and you're going to go, I didn't even hear that. I wasn't even there.
Constructive dialogue.
Don't forget to give a new thumbs up and a like to this. You have to. Thanks for reminding me, Benny Loco. New stream, new thumb. Go ahead.
Between the United States and Russia affords the opportunity to open new pathways toward peace and stability in our world.
Yeah, stability. That's the goal of Russia.
I'd rather take a political risk in pursuit of peace than to risk peace in pursuit of politics.
That's a lovely statement. It's a good inversion line. It has nothing to do with our relationship with Russia.
As president, I will always put what is best for America and what is best for the American people. During today's meeting,
Put it where? You will always put it what? He didn't say put it first. Did I miss that part? Did you guys miss? Did anybody catch that? As president, I will always put you what? Put it in a waste paper basket?
I would rather take a political risk in pursuit of peace.
And risk peace for politics.
In pursuit of politics.
As if it's a false binary. What a bunch of bullshit.
As president, I will always put what is best for America and what is best for the American people. During today's meeting, I
Put it where? Put it where? You didn't say put it first, did he? He didn't say he'd put it first there. He just said he'd put it where? In the waste paper basket?
addressed directly with President Putin the issue of Russian interference in our elections. I felt this was a message best delivered in person. Spent a
Behind closed doors with no translator
great deal of time
and no notes from the meeting.
talking about it, and President Putin may very well want to address it, and very strongly, because he feels very strongly about it, and he has an interesting idea.
Yeah, that you guys form a joint task force where we give Russia intel on our election security just to see we can help you find the rat. Are you kidding me? Remember
We
this?
also discussed one of the most critical challenges facing humanity, nuclear proliferation.
Yeah, and since then they've ditched the treaty.
I provided an update on my meeting last month with Chairman Kim.
What was that? Why'd that lock up? Oh, this video was... oh, they ditched out. What happened there? Oh, is that when they dragged the dude out? Is that did they freeze it at that point? Because there was a guy removed.
Lives.
Yeah, they switched, like they popped an angle out and changed the camera angle.
I also
They picked up. There was a dude removed from this.
emphasized the importance of placing pressure on Iran to halt its nuclear ambitions and to stop its campaign of violence throughout the area, and throughout the Middle East. As we discussed at length,
Why is Putin wearing Trump's pants? Is that just an internal gag? Oh, I mean, he's a fitted suit kind of a dude. What's with the baggy pants? Is that just because he wears a diaper too, or has he got a leg bag for his catheter? It's going to be a long gathering.
crisis in Syria is a complex one. Cooperation between our two countries has the potential to save hundreds of thousands of lives. I also
Oh yeah.
made clear that the United States will not allow Iran to benefit from our successful campaign against ISIS. We have just about eradicated ISIS. in the area. We also
In the area. What is it? It's elsewhere? Is it all over China now?
agreed that representatives from our national security councils will meet to follow up on all of the issues we addressed today and to continue the progress we have started right here
Thanks, Mon.
in Helsinki. Today's meeting is only the beginning of a longer process, but we have taken the first steps toward a brighter future and one with a strong dialogue and a lot of thought.
Oh, yeah?
Our expectations are grounded in realism, but our hopes are grounded in America's desire for friendship, cooperation, and peace. And I think I can speak on behalf of Russia when I say that also. President Putin, I want to thank you again for joining me for these important discussions and for advancing open dialogue between Russia and the United States.
Keep in mind, all during this, Putin was paying people to kill our soldiers.
Our meeting carries on a long tradition of diplomacy between Russia
Still reading with his finger. This is not a new thing.
the United States for the greater good of all. And this was a very constructive day. This was a very constructive few hours that we spent together. It's in the interest of both of our countries to continue our conversation, and we have agreed to do so. I'm sure we'll be meeting again in the future, often.
Oh, I'm sure of it too. Often.
Hopefully we will solve every one of the problems that we discussed today. So, again, President Putin, thank you very much.
You did good. Now you can answer some questions, but I will hit you with cattle prod.
So I just wish them luck. I mean, I did. I discussed.
Do-
I think that we will be competing when you talk about the pipeline. I'm not sure necessarily that it's in the best interests of Germany or not, but that was a decision that they made. We'll be competing. As you know, the United States is now, or soon will be, but I think it actually is right now the largest in the oil and gas world. So we're going to be selling LNG, and we'll have to be competing with the pipeline. And I think we'll compete successfully, although there is a little advantage locationally. So I
Locationally.
just wish them luck. I mean, I did. I discussed with Angela Merkel in pretty strong tones, but I also know where they're all coming from and source. So we'll see how that all works out. But we have lots of sources now, and the United States is much different than it was a number of years ago when we weren't able to extract what we can extract today. So today we're number one in the world
Didn't Chesapeake just go out of business today? The natural gas company?
at that, and I think we'll be out there competing very strongly.
Uh-huh. So we don't have to go through this whole thing. This was last year. But I just wanted to remind everybody what was going on. And then there was this clip about Trump denying the briefing that was on Morning Joe. I want to run down through some of the stuff that was in this clip as well.
Give us your reaction to the shocking story that's come out and the fact that the White House has done absolutely nothing about it for 3 months now.
Joe, based on my
Thanks 0807.
reporting, trying to confirm the New York Times' excellent story, it's clear that in late March you had senior U.S. commanders, senior civilian intelligence officials, in effect pounding on the door of the White House saying, we need to do something about this. We need to come to a conclusion about what damage the Russian program is doing. We need to reassess our programs in Afghanistan. And they couldn't get an answer. To this day, there's not an answer. There's not a real response. Now, was this because the president was briefed and did nothing, or because he wasn't briefed because people were afraid to give him bad news and kept it to themselves? I don't
Or they were phrased that any information they give Trump, Putin also has.
know. But it almost doesn't matter in terms of the breakdown of the way the government's supposed to work. I mean, in some ways, it's almost worse that they didn't tell him, Mr. President, while you're encouraging Russia to rejoin the G8, we should mention that Russia has been putting bounties on the heads of American soldiers.
Yeah, there's no way that didn't come up. Hey, I think we should bring them back into circle. Like one person in the intel community went, yeah, there's this one little thing. They've been paying people to kill our Green Berets.
If they didn't,
we lost 10 last year.
Tell them that. That's a stunner. What we do know is that this had become a subject of intense debate and concern within senior levels of the military and the CIA, and that they were pushing from two sides towards the NSC in March for these meetings and conversations. And I think people are steamed up about it. There's nothing that would make American commanders angrier than the idea that their soldiers had targets on their back because of the actions of somebody.
This story is just going to grow and grow and grow.
The president was still speaking of as a prospective ally.
But David, I'll ask you the same question I asked General McCaffrey. With your decades of experience in Washington, D.C., reporting at the highest level of government, the highest levels of White House, the highest levels of the intel community, what chance is there that it would be commonly known among Americans in Afghanistan that Vladimir Putin's Russia was putting bounty on the heads of American troops, that the CIA station chief would know about it, therefore the CIA would know about it in Washington, the National Security Council would know about it, the intel community would know about it. They would be so concerned they would call a NSC meeting in late March to figure out what options they had, and based upon your reporting, were banging on the president's door, begging him to take action and warn our allies, our closest allies, that there were targets on the heads of their troops as well. And nobody in the White House would tell Donald Trump. First of all, what are the chances of that? And secondly, how badly would that reflect on this president if that were, in fact, the case? I don't know which would be worse.
Yeah, this folds back into some of the Bush administration stuff, which is you're either evil or incompetent. Both don't bode well for re-election. The other thing too is, and this is the ongoing problem with Trump in general, is that he waits till things are a crisis before he even starts to work on them, and then complains that nobody was prepared, even though he just makes up and then sometimes he just makes up crises out of whole cloth. Like he'll just tweet something into existence. And it reminds me of that scene in Brain Candy, the Kids in the Hall movie, where he's like, I think we should work on something to go, a new version of Stummies. And how are we on that? How are we on what, Don? The thing you just mentioned? Yeah, the thing I just mentioned. Oh, we're right on top of that, Don. Like the idea that as a leader you would just make up a crisis out of whole cloth and then go, why isn't it being handled? Or let things go until they're a crisis, and then bitch that nobody prepped for it, even though you've been in charge of that prep for the entire, the entire time, so that your fallback really is one of two things. Either people rightly perceive that you wanted the bad outcome that happened, or you are so incompetent you couldn't even see the obvious negative outcome.
I don't know either. And let me be clear about my reporting. They were pounding on the door of the White House, of the NSC operation. I don't know if they were pounding on the president's door. That's one of the mysteries here. But
no, it's not a mystery. Either he didn't want to hear it, or he already knew and knew he couldn't hear it.
The things
Thanks,
that
Amy.
I've watched with this administration.
And thank you for the super chat, Amy. By the way, we got it. I appreciate that. And the coffee and what else? Yeah, it all came in the one package. The coffee and the gel. Thanks. And thank you guys for the super chats today. I'm sorry if some of them got bumped and I didn't see them because I had to change streams. Sometimes it blanks out what I can look at. So thank you guys for the super chats and the support. Thank you to our patrons for making the show possible. You guys are awesome, and I adore you.
Is a fear, a growing fear of telling the boss the truth.
This is not one of those, like, what's he going to do? Yell at you for telling him because he doesn't want to hear? What's he going to do? Shove his fingers in his ears and go la 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 la? This isn't the same thing. They're not afraid of telling him because they're going to get backlash for bringing it up. There's only two reasons not to tell him. One is literally he won't take the meeting, so you can't get in the room. The other is, if you tell him, he'll tell Russia, and that puts our soldiers in even greater risk. It is better to tell the CIA station chief and the people in the actual theater that shit is going south, and that they should watch people on patrol and certain actions because the Russians have a price on the head of our soldiers, but not tell Trump because we don't want Russia to know we know.
Because the boss will go nuts.
Thank you, Melinda.
And he'll be angry at you, and he'll fight.
Ugh, that's a completely natural color. Look at that. What do we call this shade of base? I call it root beer poop. It's wonderful.
You, or he'll. I mean, we saw this again and again in his interventions in military issues. In the case of Eddie Gallagher, the Navy SEAL, in the case of the removal of Captain Crozier, the captain of the Theodore Roosevelt, in the case of the famous photo op at St. John's Church. The president just goes ballistic if he gets news he doesn't want to hear. And I think this may be a situation like that. But what I'm confident of is that as people are trying to establish exactly what happened, and understand this is an intelligence puzzle, they're working off of limited information they want to know.
Yeah, but we don't want to know about stuff until it's verified. So unless you've got receipts, I'm not interested in what you find. I don't trust you. If Russia says it's not happening, it's not happening unless you actually have photos of money changing hands directly, and that the money you know for sure is real bills, because it might just be a trick Russia's playing out of, that kind of thing. I don't want to hear any la 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 la.
Were Americans killed? How did it happen? What I think what upset them most was that we were continuing to have a normal dialogue with Russia.
You don't do air quotes with one finger. It's gross. That's just, it looks a little... because they're quotes. And you don't do this either. That's it. You'll see some people do that where they're like making the shape of the air quotes. That's like saying the internets. You just whack. That's it. So this guy's he's calling me a moron. Meanwhile,
as if nothing had happened. And I think that really bugged people.
Yeah, Jonathan Lemire.
Yeah, miffed is the word.
Like you.
Christ. So this story, by the way, ongoing, and Trump's story about it was, here it is. Sorry to inform the do-nothing Democrats, but I am getting very good internal polling numbers. Just like 2016, the New York Times polls are fake. The Fox News polls are a joke. Do you think they will apologize to me and their subscribers again when I win? People want law, order, and safety. 95% approval rating, and then in the Republican Party, right? Then he bitches about Woodrow Wilson. We'll go through he does his little. Like, these are all, like, can you tell he's just spackling wounds shut as best he can? Just, like, slamming a bunch of these things out. Give me a thing, and, guys, give me all those pictures and post them all. That's what he said. His staff posted those. Then the Monuments Act. Then it's, like, the fake news New York Times just must reveal its anonymous source, but they can't do it. This person probably does not even exist. Okay. So this was his thing when Richard Grenell said, I never heard this, and it's discussing how you continue to politicize intelligence. You clearly don't understand how raw intel gets verified. Leaks of partial information to reporters from anonymous sources is dangerous because people like you manipulate it for political gain. That's him attacking Ted Lieu. And then Trump's response to fake news in the New York Times must reveal its anonymous source. First of all, if it's in quotes and it's anonymous, then it is anonymous. The quotes part, it's not anonymous if it doesn't exist, right, is the point, I suppose. But bet they can't do it. This person probably does not even exist. What is he assuming? It's a computer program, or like, why don't you put the word exist in quotes while you're at it? This is such gibberish. But if it's an anonymous source and the person doesn't exist, again, you can't leak a lie. So, and by the way, Grinnell says leaks of partial information to reporters from anonymous sources is dangerous because people like you manipulate it for political gain. So Grinnell's not putting anonymous in quotes, Trump is. And he's admitting leaks of partial information. Yeah, okay, you can't leak a lie. And if it's partial information, then the information's coming out is true. What's the other information against it? Is the counter Russia says no? We're buying that, are we? Yeah. So, and then he goes, corrupt Joe Biden's team is running false ads. Almost everything in them is a knowing lie. Just the opposite of what they are saying, and very much like their fake news partners. Well, that's well crafted. That's the best words right there. I don't know, why didn't he put the whole thing in quotes? Why corrupt Joe Biden's, and he's trying to corrupt Joe Biden because Sleepy Joe isn't working. That, that's it, literally, is he floating that? Yeah. Are my biceps looking particularly charged up or something? I don't know. But good Lord, absentee ballots are fine. A person has to go through a process to get and use them. Mail-in voting, on the other hand, will lead to the most corrupt. We just found out, by the way, there was a story, Trump keeps saying this, that mail-in ballots are going to be false. We just got this report that Russia was not prepared for a large majority of mail-in ballots. And the idea is that if they can hack voting machines, but people have mailed in their ballots, they can be verified easier. So, what's up, Critical? How are you? Oh, and the weird swingers group. I didn't even see her gun initially in this part or whatever. This doesn't seem, I honestly, these people are probably assholes. This doesn't seem all that weird when you have a bunch of people and there's been rioting and there's been looting and burning places down and busted windows and all kinds of stuff, and it's private property, and these people are panicked because they're starting to come down their street. That's not that weird in that part of the world. It just isn't. Oh, my mullet's getting there. It's growing. It's definitely part of it. And then this is the thing. Lindsey Graham, he goes golfing with this asshole. And this is yesterday. Intel just reported to me that they did not find this info credible and therefore did not report it to me or VP, possibly another fabricated Russian hoax, made maybe by the fake news, New York Times books. I don't know why New York Times books, wanting to make Republicans look bad. Did it just autofill it to books? Or was he was going to write a tweet about how he's a bestseller with New York Times books and got distracted. And then Lindsey Graham, imperative Congress get to the bottom of recent media reports that the Russian GRU units in Afghanistan have offered to pay the Taliban to kill American soldiers with the goal of pushing America out of the region. So he's having a conversation with Lindsey Graham about this. Intel just reported to me they did not find this info credible. Apparently some of them did, because there was a distinct there was an argument going on that apparently he was not part of. Russian spy unit paid Taliban to attack U.S. troops, U.S. intelligence says. Oh, wait, who put that out? Fox News. Curious that. Even Fox News is following up on this. They've done their due diligence, apparently, and in their fair and balanced response, they put this out, and Lindsey Graham answered it and said, hey, it's imperative Congress get to the bottom of this thing. Call a meeting together of Intel people and hash this shit out quickly. And what did Trump do? He just over-tweeted it and said, nah, they just told me they didn't find it credible and therefore they didn't report it to me. So probably fake, never mind, blah, blah, blah. And then this is Trump Jr. doing this, like, and then there's a retweet of that. And then the other one, Trump campaign opens field office in Manchester. Yeah, it looks like a great turnout. Looks fantastic. I mean, there's almost enough people there to make up for the difference in Tulsa. Huge turnout. It's great. Why no one in a tricorn hat? Where'd that go? Look at this. Look at this place. Look at that parking lot. Look at that. They opened an office for firing up our grassroots supporters. There they are. There's the grassroots folks all hanging out. Look at that. There you go. They're in their little. That is some folding chair love right there. Trump, Pence, and that's actually a dual office for one of the Congress people running. 603. Oh, huh? Is that the area code? Is that how they remind the callers where they're calling from when they bring in carpetbagging volunteers from other places? It's super weird. So these are, and Corey Lewandowski is the one who like opened this up. Look how there was like 4 tweets of this same crap about them opening the Manchester. Strengthens. Oh, that's the monument. Monument foster care and adoptions. Well, I wish I could just get rid of the Magnitsky Act. Retweeting Dan Scavino, and then yeah, that'll do it. Put a fake hat on him for that. It's gotten bigger. See, the only icebergs that have gotten bigger during the Trump presidency are the ones representing his support. Yeah, that's the part you want to grow over the course. What a great analogy. This is the part you want to have grow over the course of your presidency. Not the people who are willing to overtly support this, but the people who hide that they support you. The silent majority has gotten bigger. Why? Such a weird thing. Oh yeah. We didn't do the Kilmeade one. Oh my God. Wherever the rallies outbreaks will follow 2 weeks later. Yeah, exactly, LEC. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that. Good Lord. Hold on. This could be good. Hit. I'm going to look up something real quick for you guys, and then that'll be our tail end of the show today. And thank you guys for joining and sticking around through the bump when the software froze. I appreciate you coming back. It means a lot. Good folks. Good people. Let's see. Trump, Dillweed, interview. There we go. There we go. Full interview. Let's see. When was this? That was 3 years ago. No, I need it this week. In the last little bit. There it is. Look at this. Oh, this is glorious. Hold on. Office, so we can have Trump tell us that it's round. Oh, it's so good. Good stuff. Brian Kilmeade. They aired different segments and on the show again, and they just sawed it together into one thing. Look at that. Thanks, Fact Base.
Look at things that happened during your years that you have no control. For example, the economic collapse. It wasn't really an economic policy of Bush's, but that's what Obama inherited. 9/11.
Yeah. Remind him of that.
Bush, that plan was in place for years ahead of time. With you, 2 things come to mind. The pandemic, and number 2 is the civil unrest.
No, because here's a distinct difference between the 2 of these things, for the record. One, the 9/11, for it being planned a bunch of years before, happened within the first year of the Bush presidency. The 2008 crash happened before Obama took office. He literally came in with it already in process. It was still collapsing as he took over. This shit happened 3.5 years in, and he had fail-safes to protect against it that he demolished as soon as he got in office. It's not even close to the same thing. It's a mix of Fox and Friends and Kilmeade doing stuff for his own radio show, I
had
think.
nothing to do with policies. It is just these are
Well,
events.
I think the civil unrest came to a certain extent because of the plague.
Okay, so people, George Floyd was had COVID, so they're related.
Plague is the Chinese plague, and it came over here, and they could have stopped it. In my opinion, they could have stopped it, and they
But they chose not to because they want to murder 100 to 250,000 Americans.
should have stopped it, and they didn't or were unable to. So it was either incompetence or they knew. And I guess
Oh, okay. Well, those are kind of two different things. Those are big deals. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you might want to find out which one it was, because apparently there's another version of swine flu around the corner, and if they're just making these things to release them into the world, because I guess the CCP has immunity to these diseases, and then they release them, if that's what's happening, you might want to prep for the largest biological war the world has ever seen.
the third one is they knew and they decided not to at a later date. But it's the Chinese
They knew and they decided to just hang out. Let's just, hey, we should stop this disease. No. Tap the brakes.
plague, and it's not a good thing. And that, I think, had something to do with the civil unrest.
You said what I thought was in jest.
People are just tired of being cooped up. We got to open our economy.
Just knowing your sense of humor. Even
Oh, Christina F., thank you so much. That's so amazing. Character riding a rocket disappearing away before bursting in the sky. It certainly is. Excellent choice of stickers, Christina F. That's amazing.
you made that comment about, hey, Russia, if you heard me, if you found those 30,000 emails, that's kind of the way you, when you're in front of people, you do that.
Well,
the other night when you
by
said
the way,
slow
that
down,
was said as a joke,
Right.
And the fake news picked it
Now,
up.
was it said as a joke because it just happened to be the day that Roger Stone was coordinating with WikiLeaks, and a half hour before you'd been made aware of that?
Like
And I
was
talked
saying.
to you
And
after
by the
that.
way, they ended up immediately when the last word was out because they didn't want to hear everybody, including me, laughing.
but is that what
was
you?
fake news.
But is that what you?
Huh? Wait a second. Hold on. Pause. I gotta hold on. I need to see something real quick. Again. Everyone, including me, laughing. What do you think the odds are we're not going to hear him laughing on this? Trump, Russia, if you're listening. Let's see if we can find that quote, shall we?
The C-SPAN networks bring you long-form public affairs programming from the nation's capital and are a public service provider.
Yeah.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. He doesn't respect our president. And if it is Russia, which is probably not, nobody knows who it is, but if it is Russia, it's really bad for a different reason, because it shows how little respect they have for our country when they would hack into a major party and get everything. But it would be interesting to see. I will tell you this. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press. Let's see if that happens. That'll be next. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I didn't hear any laughing in that clip. I didn't see him laughing. I didn't hear anybody even remotely laughing
The
about
C-SPAN
that
networks
stuff.
bring you long-form
Quit
public
it.
affairs programming from
Yes,
the
I
nation's
know.
capital and are a public
Thank
service.
you. Goodbye. And then this
And
is.
when you
we'll continue with
said
this.
don't do so much testing,
No.
yeah.
No. Somebody said, I may have been joking. No. We got so good at testing. You know, what we did is a miracle between the ventilators and all of the things we did. But we got so good at testing that we've done 25 million tests. We've done 20 or 21 million more than Germany and these other countries. If you do more tests, that means you're going to have more cases. So we've done so good that we're showing
So
we have
good.
a lot of cases. And everyone's saying
Whoops.
they have more cases. Well, we have more cases because we have more